So about a third of Trump's cabinet picks have SA or misconduct allegations against them, which is approximately 6 people if you're counting. RFK Jr., of course, he was accused by his former babysitter of raping her back in the late 1990s, where she was only 23 years old. NBC News reported that. Elon Musk, who's not being involved in government because nobody voted for him, he was accused of misconduct by SpaceX flight attendant in 2016.
Employees from SpaceX, we're learning tonight, are now suing Elon Musk and his company, alleging Musk personally ordered their firing after they accused SpaceX of tolerating sex harassment in the workplace. The lawsuit says Musk runs his company in the dark ages, this is a quote here, treating women as sexual objects. SpaceX did not immediately respond to NBC's request for comment, but in the past, they've denied wrongdoing related to these firings. All of it coming just...
SpaceX allegedly paid her $250,000 to go away, and he's also been sued for creating a hostile workplace. Then we got Miss Linda McMahon, who Trump put in place as education secretary.
Mrs. McMahon, you have been named in a lawsuit, which alleges that you and your husband allowed for systemic and pervasive abuse of underage children to persist in your business for years. It is an ongoing lawsuit, and it alleges that you rehired a known sexual predator and you felt it was sufficient to simply direct him to steer clear of children. If confirmed, you will be responsible with overseeing the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights, charged with ensuring equal access to education through vigorous enforcement of civil rights laws. I am so concerned about whether sexual assault survivors on campus can trust you to support them.
Thank you, Senator. They certainly can trust me to support them. I have a granddaughter that is now in college. I have 2 grandsons who are in college. And I have a deep commitment of understanding of how I would feel if any of them were involved in sexual harassment or accused of sexual harassment. You have my absolute commitment that I will uphold and protect.
She's currently being sued over allegations she knew about and enabled actual exploitation of children by WWE employees back in the 1980s. Matt Gaetz, of course, who can forget Matt Gaetz? He was originally picked to be Trump's AG and withdrew after accusations surfaced that he had with a 17-year-old and paid for it, and with also paid for that with other 2 women at least. And of course, there's Trump himself, who was found liable for actually abusing E. Jean Carroll back in 1996. And he's been accused by more than a dozen women of actual assault or harassment. But somebody who's managed to do a lot of that and skirt on by, buried by all his other drama, is Pete Hegseth, our now defense secretary, the guy from Fox and Friends, American values, while he's on his 3rd marriage in 7 years. And I know we've talked about the drunk military plan texting moment. We've talked about him renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War, like we're in a bad video game. We've even talked about the potential war crimes as of late, really light stuff. But what's really breezed past Pete Hegseth's sexual assault history, and it's almost like nobody's talking about it. It's like,
I have many concerns about your record and particularly your public statements, because they are so hurtful to the men and women who are currently serving in the U.S. military, harmful to morale, harmful to good order and discipline. If you are saying that women shouldn't be serving in the military, and I'm going to read you your quotes, because the quotes themselves are terrible, you will have to change how you see women to do this job well, and I don't know if you are capable of that. So I want to press on these issues that my colleague Jean Shaheen brought up, because she said it so well. So first of all, you answered your questionnaire. Do you believe that any American who wants to serve in their country in the military and can meet objective standards set by the military should be allowed to serve without limitation? You've said yes to that question. But then in all of these other circumstances, you've denigrated active duty service members. We have hundreds of women who are currently in the infantry, lethal members of our military serving in the infantry, but you degrade them. You say, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. So specific to Senator Cotton's question, because Senator Cotton was giving you layups to differentiate between different types of combat? And specifically, as secretary, would you take any action to reinstitute the combat arms exclusion for female service members, knowing full well you have hundreds of women doing that job right now? So please explain specifically, because you will be in charge of 3 million personnel. It is a big job. And when you make these public statements, and I get you were not Secretary of Defense then, I get you were on TV, I get you were helping veterans, I get it was a different job. But most recently, you said this in November of 2024, knowing full well you might have been named as Secretary of Defense. So please explain these types of statements, because they're brutal and they're mean and they disrespect men and women who are willing to die for this country.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments. And I would point out, I have never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty service members, men and women, low ranks, high ranks, combat arms and not combat arms. And what each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, Ranger School.
It's like Trump looks through his criminal pals and picks them based off of who has the most. So in case you don't know, in 2017, Pete Hegseth was accused of actually assaulting a woman at a Republican women's conference, which, just spitballing here, feels like not the ideal venue for that. The woman told police that he took her phone, locked the door, and wouldn't let her leave the hotel room. She said she remembered saying no a lot. She went to the hospital 5 days later. A nurse called the police because the woman said that somebody had drugged her and that she didn't remember most of the night, and she had a grape kit done.
Focused on your fitness to serve, including your character and temperament and your overall qualifications to do the job. And I do appreciate the comments of Ranking Member Reed with his concerns regarding your nomination, because I share those concerns. As part of my responsibility as a member of this committee to ensure the fitness of all nominees to come before any of the committees on which I sit, I ask the following two initial questions. First, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
Senator, I was falsely accused in October of 2017. It was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared.
I don't think completely cleared is accurate, but the fact is that your own lawyer said that you entered into an NDA and paid a person who accused you of raping her a sum of money to make sure that she did not file a complaint. Moving on. As Secretary, you will be in charge of maintaining good order and discipline by enforcing the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ. In addition to the sexual assault allegations, and by the way, the answer to my second question should have been yes. I have read multiple reports of your regularly being drunk at work, including by people who worked with you at Fox News. Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
She gave police the clothes she was wearing. There was an investigation, and Pete Hegseth was never charged. The DA said that they didn't have enough proof beyond reasonable doubt. Just because he wasn't convicted doesn't mean it wasn't a real thing, which brings me to the next part that we just skip over. Then 3 years later, in 2020, Pete Hegseth paid that woman $50,000, not because he did anything wrong, mind you. No, of course not. According to his lawyer, he paid it because it was the height of the MeToo movement. And he was worried about any accusation, true or not, that would get him fired from Fox News. So he paid her to go away to protect his job, which is a choice you can make, I guess. But let's be really clear about what that is. That's paying somebody $50,000 to stop talking about what happened between you two, what you did to this person. That's make this disappear and please sign this confidential agreement and never speak of this again money. During his confirmation hearing, he said the charges were completely false and he was completely cleared, except he wasn't cleared. The DA decided to not prosecute because they didn't have proof beyond reasonable doubt, which just means they couldn't prove it in court. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. These are different things. Chris Cuomo. And when Senator Tim Kaine asked if he acknowledged cheating on his wife and the woman who he had just had a baby with, Hegseth didn't deny it. He couldn't really. At the time of his alleged assault, he was legally married to wife number 2, while his Fox contributor coworker, his now wife of baby number 3, had just given birth to his baby, just as Jesus would have wanted. And then Senator Tammy Duckworth, an actual combat veteran, pointed out this makes him vulnerable to blackmail. That's our allies. They might hesitate to share intelligence because they don't know if a defense secretary is compromised, which is a gentler way of saying, is he hammered? And she's right. If you paid $50,000 to make something disappear and somebody knows about it, and if somebody knows they can use it, Pete Hegseth now oversees 2.9 million troops. He controls an $800 billion budget. He represents American military values to the world. And in 2020, he paid a woman $50,000 to stop talking about what he did to her in a Monterey hotel room. It almost makes you wonder, like, how maybe him being drunk at work all the time is less jarring now that you know all this. Anyway, bye.